Hello, beautiful homemakers. Today I'm reading all the July chapters from the book 1000 Ways to Please a Husband for meal planning with Bettina. I think the title of the book is a bit misleading, but if you consider that many women cooked 3 meals a day every single day, then that is 1,095 meals in 1 year. Personally, I can't even imagine doing that. I'm very thankful that my husband likes to cook his own breakfast, and my son and I have the same thing every morning, peanut butter toast placed on a paper towel so that there are no dishes to wash. The following is an excerpt from the chapters concerning July, which is rather long, but they do get shorter as the months go on. However, this has lots of good advice about budgeting, how tall your sink should be, economizing, keeping your silver untarnished, and much more. However, I wouldn't suggest renting a house to surprise your husband, as Mrs. Dixon will do. I've omitted the actual recipes as they aren't really edible these days. However, they may give you dinner inspiration. I got out my own darling notepaper that has the months of the year at the top, and as she mentions what she's cooking, I jot down a list for my own use and inspiration. Now go brew yourself a cup of tea and enjoy a nice long talk about the perfect homemaker, Bettina. 1000 Ways to Please a Husband with Bettina's Best Recipes, July. The market is full of delights in July. Fresh vegetables, berries, red cherries for pie. Good housewives and telephones seldom agree, so market yourself. You can buy as you see. Chapter 7. A New-Fashioned Sunday Dinner. "You will go to church with us this morning, Bettina?" asked Bob's cousin Henry, known also as the Reverend Henry Clinkersmith, as he came into Bettina's immaculate kitchen one Sunday. "Yes, indeed I will go," Bettina answered him. "Is it nearly 10 o'clock?" "Oh, yes, 9:45. I'll go at once and get ready." Cousin Henry had arrived late Saturday evening. He was filling the pulpit of a friend that Sunday morning. Bettina finished arranging the low bowl of pansies which was to be her table decoration. "For the dinner table," she explained to Cousin Henry. "And Bob?" she said as they walked to church. Cousin Henry was ahead with an old friend. I do believe he was worried about dinner. There wasn't a trace of any preparation to be seen. You know I made the cake and the salad dressing yesterday, and the lettuce was on ice. The sherbet was on the porch. I bought it, you know. And the lamb and potatoes were in the cooker." "Well, let him worry. How long will it take to get it ready after we get home?" "About 15 minutes. The table is set, but I'll have to warm the plates and take things up. Then there's the gravy to make, of course." "All I can say is this," said Cousin Henry at dinner, as he passed his plate for a second helping. "Since you've explained the mysteries of the fireless cooker, I realize how it would have helped those cold Sunday dinners of the past generation. The women could have obeyed the 4th commandment and given their families a good Sunday dinner, too." That day they had leg of lamb with potatoes, lamb gravy, a head of lettuce, Thousand Island dressing, mint sauce, bread, butter, pineapple sherbet, Bettina's loaf cake, and coffee. Chapter 8. Celebrating the 4th. "Now, boys, run and play while Alice and I set the picnic table," said Bettina to Bob and Mr. Harrison. "See if the fish are biting. Cultivate your patience as well as your appetites, and we'll surprise you soon." "Bettina, let me help you unpack. Everything looks so dainty and interesting," said Alice, as Bob and Mr. Harrison strolled off toward the river. "You ought to have allowed me to bring something, although I'll admit that I do enjoy being surprised. You were a dear to bring me with you." "I?" said Bettina. "Of course I'm glad to have you here. No one is better fun, but I wish you had heard something that Bob told me. He and Harry Harrison were planning to go fishing today, all by themselves, until Harry suggested that Bob might like to bring me along. And then he added as an afterthought that as three is a crowd, Miss Alice might be induced to come too. Why is it that Miss Alice or Miss Kate or Miss May always sounds so like a confirmed bachelor? Bob chuckled when he told me how careless and offhand Harry tried to be. Betty, how pretty those pasteboard plates are with the flag seals pasted on them. Well, I saw some ready-made 4th of July plates, but it was much more economical to make my own. And how do you like the red, white, and blue paper napkins and lunch cloth? Lunch paper, I ought to say. I suppose, Alice, you arrange the fruit in the center of the basket with napkins around it, and with these little flags sticking out of it in every direction. But first, dear, please tell me why you changed the subject when I was speaking of Mr. Harrison. Those deviled eggs wrapped in frilled tissue paper look just like torpedoes. Alice, Alice, I learned something new about you today. Harry said that society girls got on his nerves, but that Miss Alice seemed sensible enough. Goodness, Betty, he has disagreed with every single thing I've said so far. If he is being pleasant behind my back, I don't see why he should be so disapproving in his manner towards me. But if he really is beginning to think me sensible, let's by all means encourage him. Hide my frivolous new hat in the lunch basket, and give me something useful to be doing. Can't I appear to be mixing the salad? Honestly, Betty, I do get tired of society as a single interest. But what else is there for me to do? Go into settlement work? I'd be a joke at that. Learn to design jewelry? Take singing lessons? Try the good old profession of matrimony. Why are you so fickle, Alice, my dear? I'm not. It's the men. Every sensible one I meet is, well, disagreeable to me. Meaning Harry Harrison? He appears to be taking quite an interest, at least. That is merely his reforming instinct coming to the surface. But is everything ready now? We'll sing a few bars of the Star-Spangled Banner, and I'm sure the men will come immediately. The lunch table was set with lobster and salmon salad, ham sandwiches, nut bread sandwiches, pickles, radishes, potato chips, deviled eggs, moist chocolate cake, bananas, oranges, torpedo candies, and lemonade. Chapter 9. Uncle John and Aunt Lucy Make a Visit. Uncle John and Aunt Lucy had driven Bob and Bettina home from a Sunday spent in the country. "Do come in," begged Bettina, "and have a little lunch with us. After such a bountiful dinner, we really ought not to be hungry, but I confess that the lovely drive home has given me an appetite. And you've never been here for a meal. Don't be frightened, Uncle John. I really thought of this yesterday, and my cupboard isn't entirely bare. It would be so much fun to show you our things in the house." "I'm not afraid we won't be fed well," said Uncle John, "but those clouds are black in the east. If it should rain, we'd have trouble getting home. Besides, I don't like to have the car standing out in a storm." "I don't believe it'll rain, John," said comfortable Aunt Lucy. "And if it does, well, we'll manage somehow. I, for one, would like to see Bettina's kitchen, and all the rest of her house," she added. Bettina arranged the dainty little meal on the porch table, and Aunt Lucy and Uncle John sat down with good appetites. "This looks almost too pretty to eat," he said, as he looked at his plate with its slice of jellied beef on head lettuce, served with salad dressing, and its fresh, crisp potato chips, and the nasturtium and green leaf lay beside them. "Have a radish and a sandwich, Uncle John," said Bettina. "We have plenty, if not variety. Only our dessert is fresh pears." "But it all tastes mighty good," said Uncle John. "Say, Bob, it is beginning to rain, I believe." "Sure enough, a regular storm. We must put the car in the empty garage across the street. I'm sure we can get permission." And he and Uncle John hurried out. "It'll blow over, I'm sure," said Aunt Lucy. "But if it doesn't, why, Aunt Lucy, stay here all night. We'd love to have you. The guest room is always ready. I know you'll be comfortable, and they can manage without you at home for once, I'm sure." "Of course they'll be all right, and it would be quite exciting to be company for a change, if only Uncle John thinks he can do it." "It looks as if there'll be nothing else to do," said Uncle John when he and Bob returned. "Not but what I'd enjoy it, but I haven't been away from home a night for, how long is it, Lucy?"
7 years last May, John. All the more reason why this will do you good." "Oh, I'm so glad you'll really stay," said Bettina. "Now tell me what you'd like for breakfast."
"Anything you have except those new-fashioned breakfast foods," Uncle John replied. "I might beat 'em to my stock now, but not to a human being. But don't you worry about me, Betty, because I don't worry about the breakfast proposition. Bob here is a pretty good advertisement of the kind of cooking you can do."
The lunch that night consisted of jellied beef, potato chips, radishes, peanut butter sandwiches, iced tea, and fresh pears. Chapter 10. Ruth inspects Bettina's kitchen. "May I come in?" said a voice at the screen door. "I came the kitchen way because I hoped that you would still be busy with the morning's work and I might learn something. You see," and Ruth blushed a little, "we're thinking of building a house, and we have lots of ideas about every room but the kitchen. Neither Fred nor I know the first thing about that, so I told him that I would just have to consult you." "How dear of you, Ruth," said Bettina, as she put away the breakfast dishes. "Well, you shall have the benefit of everything that I know. Bob and I began with the kitchen when we planned this little house. It seemed so important. I expected to spend a great deal of time here, and I was determined to have it cheerful and convenient. I never could see why a kitchen should not be a perfectly beautiful room, as beautiful as any in the whole house." "Yours is, Bettina," said Ruth warmly as she looked around her. "No wonder you can cook such fascinating little meals. It's light and sunny and clean-looking. Oh, immaculate! And has such a pleasant view." "I wanted it to have lots of sunshine. We had the walls painted this shade of yellow because it seemed pretty and cheerful. Perhaps you won't care to have white woodwork like this, but you see, it's plain, and I don't find it hard to keep clean out here on the edge of town. I think it's so pretty that I don't expect to regret my choice. Another thing, Ruth, do get a good grade of inlaid linoleum like this. I know the initial expense is greater, but a good piece will last a long time and will always look well." "How high is the sink, Bettina?" 36 inches. You see, I'm not very tall, and yet I have always found that every other sink I tried was too low for solid comfort. The plumbers have a way of making them all alike, 32 inches from the floor, I think. They were scandalized because I asked them to change the regulation height, and yet I find this exactly right. And isn't it a lovely white enameled one? I'm happy whenever I look at it. Don't laugh, Ruth. A sink is a very important piece of furniture. I had always liked this kind with the grooved drain board on each side, sloping just a little toward the center. And see how easily I can reach up and put away the dishes in the cupboard? I don't like a single dish or utensil in sight when the kitchen is in order. This roll of paper toweling here by the sink is very convenient for wiping off the table or taking grease off pans and dishes, or even for drying glass and silver. A roll lasts a long time and certainly does save dishcloths and towels." "Do you use your fireless cooker often?" "Every day of the year, I do believe. I cook breakfast food in it, and all kinds of meats except those that are boiled or fried. Then it's splendid for steaming brown bread and baking beans, and oh, so many other things." Mother keeps hers under the kitchen table, but I find it more convenient here at the right of the stove, on a box just level with the stove. Next, O neophyte, you may observe the stove. The oven is at the side, high up, so that one need not stoop to use it. It has a glass oven door through which I can watch my baking. I like this white enameled table, and the high stool must be convenient, too. It is splendid. Ruth, haven't you an old marble tabletop at home? It'd be just the thing for pastry making. Yes, I do know of one, I think, and I'll have the lower part enameled white. Well, Fred can do it himself. Let him help to fix things up, and he'll be all the more interested in them, and in helping you use them. Bettina, this is an adorable breakfast alcove. What fun you must have every morning. If we have one, I don't believe we'll ever use the dining room. How convenient. Here come the waffles, hot from the stove. Fred, do have a hot muffin. Not at the same meal, Ruth. No, he'll be fortunate if he gets anything to eat at all. He isn't marrying a Bettina, but he says he is satisfied. Bettina, does Bob help you get breakfast? Indeed he does. He loves to make coffee in the electric percolator and toast on the toaster. He says that an electric toaster and plenty of bath towels are the real necessities of life. But I say I cannot live without flowers and a fireplace. Oh, you'll have such fun, Ruth. Let Fred help you all he will. I'm hearing all this advice, suddenly shouted a big voice in her ear. Look here, Mrs. Bettina, does Bob know that you are advising your friends to train their husbands just as you are training him? Fred, you old eavesdropper, I hope that Ruth makes you get breakfast every single morning to pay for this. Aren't you ashamed? Don't you know that listeners never hear any good of themselves? I suppose Fred knew he needn't worry, said Rosy Ruth, as she took his arm. Look, Fred, isn't it a dear little house? May he see it all, Bettina? Yes, if he'll explain how a busy man can get away at this hour of the morning. Well, you see, I was on my way to the office when I caught a glimpse of Ruth's pink dress at your back door. I happened to think that she said she didn't get a recipe for those skyrocket rolls that you had at your party the other day. I just thought I'd have to remind her for the sake of my future. What under the shining sun? Oh, pinwheel biscuits. Yes, that's it. Why, all right. I have it filed away in my card index. Here, with a picture of them pasted on the card. I cut it out of the magazine that gave the recipe. They are delicious. Chapter 11. Bettina's Birthday Gift. You're set, Bob, said Bettina as she gathered up the tennis balls. But please say you think I'm improving. Oh, there'll come a time when I'll make you a stiff opponent, but I'll have to work up my service first. It's time to go home for breakfast now, but hasn't it been fun? Fine, Betty. We'll do it again. I don't object at all to getting up early when I'm once up, and we ought to get out and play tennis before breakfast every day. I knew you'd like it once you tried it, but it took my birthday to make you willing to celebrate this way. Just you wait till you see what I have for you at home. I made it myself, with a little help from Ruth. Oh, Bob, is that what you've been doing all these evenings? I'm so anxious to see it. I've begrudged the time you've spent all alone hammering and sawing away down in the basement, but I didn't let myself even wonder what it was you were making, since you had asked me not to look. Well, while you're beginning the breakfast, I'll be bringing your birthday gift upstairs. Then I can help you. In a short time, when Bettina was arranging the cheerful hollyhocks on the table, she heard a low whistle behind her. There stood Bob, looking like a sandwich man, with a brightly flowered cretonne screen draped about him. Well, how do you like it? Oh, Bob, it's the sewing screen I've been wanting, and it just matches the cretonne bedroom hangings. Here are the little pockets for mending and darning materials, and the larger ones for the unfinished work. How beautifully it's made! And won't it be convenient? It will be useful as a screen and also as a place for those sewing things, for I have no good place at all in which to keep them. It'll be decorative, too, and how light it is! I can carry it so easily, and work beside it on the porch or in the living room. Glad you like it. Ruth designed it and made the pockets. I did the carpenter work. Bob, it's a lovely birthday gift, and I appreciate it all the more because you made it yourself. How pretty it is with all the woodwork enameled white. I wanted it to match the bedroom things. Well, is that coffee done yet? Tennis certainly does give me an appetite. Breakfast consisted of iced cantaloupe, poached eggs on toast, applesauce, and coffee. Chapter 12. Bettina's father tries her cooking. So, she's about to try her cooking on me, is she? Said Bettina's father to Bob, as he sat down at the table. Well, I'll admit that I have looked forward to this all day. But there was a time when I was a little more skeptical of Bettina's culinary skill. You know, when Mother was in California 2 years ago last winter. Now, Charlie, you know that all girls have to learn at some time or other, interrupted Bettina's mother. And I believe that Bob has fared pretty well, considering that Bettina is just beginning to keep house. I should say so, said Bob heartily. Why, I'm getting fat. I was weighed today, and don't say any more, Bob. We'll rent the house and take to boarding if you get fat. No boarding houses for mine, not after your cooking, Bettina. I had enough of boarding before I was married. Say, how long ago that does seem. Has the time dragged as much as that? Well, I'll change the subject. Dad, how do you like my Japanese garden? I think it's pretty, don't you? I certainly do, my dear. What are those feathery things? Why, don't you know that, Father? And when you were a boy, you worked on a farm one summer, too. There's a parsnip and a horseradish and a beet. Then there are a few parsley seeds and grass seeds on a tiny sponge. And see the little shells and stones that Bob and I collected for it? Yes, we found that pink stone up the river on a picnic a year ago last May before we were engaged. Or were we engaged then, Bettina? And the purple one— Oh, you needn't reminisce, Bettina interrupted hastily. Eat your dinner. Every little stone has a meaning all its own, every little shell, but it wouldn't do to tell. I composed that poem just this minute, said Bob, undisturbed. Will you help me get the dessert now, Robert? Are you ready, Mother, Father? Yes, indeed. A very fine dinner, Bettina. We never have steak fixed this way at home, do we, Mother? Can we try it some day soon? I have something for dessert that you like, Dad. Guess what? What is it? Oh, lemon pie. That's fine, I can tell you. But I know already that it won't be as good as your mother's. Still, we'll try it and see. That evening for dinner, Bettina served deviled steak, new potatoes and cream, baking powder biscuits, jelly, cucumber and radish salad, lemon pie, and coffee. Chapter 13. Bob helps with the dinner. Here, Bettina, let me mash those potatoes. It's fine exercise after a day at the office. And Bob seized the potato masher with the same vigor that he used to handle a tennis racket. Good for you, Bob. They can't have a single lump in them after that. About the most unappetizing thing I can think of is lumpy mashed potato, or mashed potato that is heavy and unseasoned. More milk? You'd better use plenty. Here, now watch me toss them lightly into this hot dish and put a little parsley and a lump of butter on top. There, doesn't that look delicious? I should say so. And look at those fancy tomatoes, each one with a cover. What on earth is inside? Just wait till you taste them. They're a new invention of mine, and I do believe they'll make a splendid luncheon dish for the next time that Ruth is here, or Alice brings her sewing over. I'm practicing on you first, you see, and if you survive and seem to like them, I may use them for a real company dish. You can't frighten me that way. Creamed chicken? Creamed veal. Don't you remember what we had for dinner last night? There were 2 chops left over, and I made it of them. I know it is good when made of cold veal roast. but I had never tried it with cold veal chops. So again, I'm experimenting on you, Bobby.
You don't frighten me so easily as that. I've just caught a glimpse of something that looks like coconut cake, and I'll be happy now, no matter how the rest of the dinner tastes.
There, everything is on, Bob. Let's sit down to dinner and you can tell me all about your day. Dinner consisted of creamed veal, mashed potatoes, stuffed tomatoes, Bettina, bread, butter, sliced peaches, cream, coconut cake, and iced tea. Chapter 14. A Sunday Evening Dinner. What kind of tea is this? Ruth inquired one Sunday evening on the porch. Why, this is a mixture of green and black tea, said Bettina. I like that better for iced tea than either kind alone.
I like tea, said Fred, although perhaps that isn't considered a manly sentiment in this country. I hope you do too, Ruth. Nothing seems so cozy to me as tea and toast, and I like iced tea like this in the summer-time. An uncle of mine is very fond of tea, and has offered to send me some that he considers particularly fine. I believe that orange pekoe is his favorite.
I think that has the best flavor of all, said Bettina, though just now we are using an English breakfast tea that we like very much, and the green tea mixed with it for this is Japan tea.
I've heard my uncle say that pekoe means white hair and is applied to young leaves because they are covered with fine white down. Uncle also says that black teas are considered more wholesome than green because they contain less tannin. I tell you, he's a regular connoisseur.
I see that I must become an expert tea maker, said Ruth. I'm learning something new about Fred every day. Bettina, do tell me exactly how you make tea. Fred can listen too, unless he already knows. Well, let's see, Ruth. I take a level teaspoon of tea to a cup of water. I put the tea in a scalded earthenware teapot. That kind is better than metal. And I pour boiling water over it, fresh water. Then I cover it and allow it to steep from 3 to 5 minutes. Then I strain and serve it. You know, tea should always be freshly made and never warmed over. It shouldn't be boiled either, not for a second. Boiling or too long steeping brings out the tannin. But how about iced tea? That has to stand. It shouldn't steep, though. I make it just like any tea and strain it. Then I let it cool and set it on ice for 3 or 4 hours. I serve it with chipped ice, lemon, and mint. Mother always added a cherry to her afternoon tea, said Ruth.
That would be great, said Bob. I don't care much for hot tea, but I believe I would be willing to drink a cup for the sake of the cherry.
Ruth, said Bettina, I know now what I will give you for an engagement present, since Fred likes tea too. A silver tea ball. Surely that will symbolize comfort and fireside cheer.
Speaking of firesides, asked Bob, what material have you decided upon for your fireplace? It seems to me that we're talking too much about tea making and not enough about house building.
That evening Bettina served salmon salad with jellied vegetables, Boston brown bread sandwiches, sliced fresh peaches, a 1-egg cake, chocolate icing, and iced tea. Because there are so many July chapters, I'm going to have to divide this into 2 or 3 videos.